What is up, guys? It is Carly here bringing you day 18 of my 31 days of horror, and today I'm going to be talking about an Italian movie, an Argento movie that is, and that is Inferno from the year 1980. Now, I had seen Suspiria. It's honestly one of my favorite horror movies of all time when I really think about it. I just really enjoy that movie. I saw that for the first time when I was in middle school, and I have actually seen Mother of Tears as well, which of course is the third movie in this sort of trilogy here. But you know, with trilogies like this where they're not really necessarily connected by continuity or anything like that, they really just have the central thing with the witches. I don't really necessarily care too much about watching them in order, so for that I didn't really mind watching that movie, and I just happened to find that one before getting my hands on Inferno. But I'd always been curious about this one because I've heard mixed opinions on it. Some say it's a little overrated and not that good, and then other people, mostly positive things I've heard about this movie. I've heard people say it's another Argento masterpiece in a way, so I was always curious on how I would feel because I really love Suspiria. I didn't really care for Mother of Tears, and you guys know how I kind of feel about Italian films in general. I'm not really a huge fan, but anyway, to get into the actual movie here, you basically open up with this young student living in New York. I believe she's a young poet, and she's in New York City living in these apartments, and she happens upon this book called the Three Mothers book. I think that's just the basic title to it, and she kind of reads into it and is reading about these different witches, and she starts to suspect that they might be connected with the very apartments that she's living in. So she writes to her brother who lives in Rome. I believe his name is Mark, and he is a music student out in Rome, and she writes him a letter, and then some stuff kind of goes down with her, and then you're kind of transported to this Mark character, and he kind of becomes the central character who's investigating these killings that are going on in the area, as well as trying to find out what's going on with his sister and why she wrote to him and stuff like that. So that's kind of the general idea behind this movie. Again, it's another witch-themed movie. That's kind of the big thing between the three movies in this trilogy, and I will say right off the bat, I really dig the color scheme in this movie. Even the cover has the basic color scheme. You get the purples, the reds, the blues. It feels like it's very much trying to mimic Suspiria in a way. I don't think it quite mimics that. You can't really nail that same aura twice. I feel like Suspiria is kind of one of those one-of-a-kind artsy movies that you can't completely recapture. But with that being said, I think this movie does a good job. It really kind of throws it in your face with the colors. The entire movie is just really colorful and interesting to stare at. The atmosphere is just fantastic in it, in my opinion. You know, it's kind of the same thing with Suspiria too, where the plot, when you really get down to it, it's sort of this paper-thin plot where it focuses more on atmosphere than the actual plot itself. And there were times where I was getting a little bit maybe confused on what was going on, and I kind of had to read the plot again to piece it together. But when you get right down to it, though, I think it is an interesting film to watch. The opening scene, you get this part where the young girl you're following at the beginning goes into this sort of underwater, I guess, ballroom area, and I think that scene is really well done and really creepy too. It's got some jump scare-ness going on to it with certain things that she encounters under the water, and there's also some scenes just towards the end of the movie that I find to actually be pretty creepy, especially the very ending when you kind of get this sort of witch-like situation going on. I think it's very well done. There's also, of course, some killings going on in this film that I also find to be well done. They're not overly gory or anything like that, but there's a good use of blood, and just the way the killings are done, I think, are pretty well done. It's not too much and not too little, if that makes any sense. So really enjoyed that. There is a scene with cats that I kind of find to be a little bit comical. I don't think it's supposed to come off as comical, of course, but it comes off as a little bit funny because it just looks really fake. But other than that, I think the movie is solid. It definitely is pretty reminiscent to Suspiria, in my opinion, which I wasn't expecting. I was expecting it to kind of be completely different, but you watch this and you do feel like it is a sequel to that movie, even though the plot is, or not the plot, but the characters and what's going on is pretty different in the film, and just the general atmosphere and all that is a little bit different because, like I said, you can't really completely replicate that movie. But overall, I enjoyed this one. It is one that I would go back to in the future to see things I might have missed and stuff like that with the just plot in general and storyline. But visually, I think it's a fantastic movie, and like I said, the kills in it are also pretty decent. So I give this one an 8 out of 10. And that is that. Thank you guys once again for joining me for day 18 here in my 31 Days of Horror. And as always, I will see you tomorrow for day 19.